Like, all of you are self-entitled, self-important jackwagons. You think that that is your sense of humor. No, you're just pissing off the few people that are left that are still reading this horse shit every month that you haven't already convinced to quit.
This week, Spider-Man Group Editor Nick Lowe went out there lauding the latest issue of ASM. It did not go well. There's probably, 50 replies. 2 of them are positive and 48 of them are shitting all over it.
I like that the readers have now reached the point where they're like, you know what? We just don't give a shit. He obviously isn't listening. He hasn't watched the sales go down. Everybody realizes that this book shouldn't even be being published right now.
Literally, the last 2 issues of ASM could have been 10 pages in an actual comic book. Yet, of course, they charge you $10 in total, and they haven't even gotten close to telling a story. It's that embarrassing these days.
It looks like they just did a comic book of somebody smashing their action figures together.
These are the responses from the people, and you can see they had an array of different complaints and grievances to put out on Nicko Laing, who bore the full brunt of it. This is what Brian H. said. Is Spider-Man ever going to win a fight? This run has been 60 issues of him losing everything over and over again. Seriously, so you guys hate Peter or what? The book is called Amazing, Not Sucky Spider-Man.
You've turned Spider-Man for 60 issues into a fucking jobber.
Yeah, can you imagine they try to headline WrestleMania with fucking Barry Horowitz? That's not how it works.
I don't know what they're trying to do. Like, other than they're trying to use his success to get other characters over. But right now, they're not even really doing that. They're just getting him beat up every time.
Is it just that Nick Lowe's been in charge of Spider-Man for far too long? Is that what it is? That he's just stale himself and he doesn't really know what to do, if anything, that could be new and exciting for the character?
I think Nick Lowe himself is just stale. Not on Spider-Man, just in comics in general. I do think him being pushed out the door would be... I can't even say that it would be beneficial to the character, because I feel like there's nobody else that would do any better that's currently working at Marvel. We'd end up with a Annalise Biss, or who's the chick that hires all the lesbians?
Sarah Brunstad.
Sarah Brunstad. They'll end up as the editor of Spider-Man if he leaves. Or we end up with fucking Jordan White. Is that worse than Nick Lowe? Probably. But at the same time, Nick Lowe is no good either. Is he stale? Yes. Is there a fresher option? No.
We also heard from Battle Raven, who pointed out a reader politely asked you a few simple questions, and this is your response. Does being an ignorant D-bag come naturally to you, or do you have to work at it? You and the rest of the hacks at Marvel's Spider-Man office have no clue how bad this makes you look. Talking about the letters page that was in a recent issue of Marvel where someone asked about Peter Parker and Shay, who's went on a date with, and he's like, oh yeah, they're totally going to get married and fall in love, and was just being a total asshole to him. Probably trying to be funny, but coming off as a dick.
I mean, honestly, if you look at their editorial office, you got a bunch of condescending hipster douchebags. Tom Brevoort, douchebag number 1. Jordan White, douchebag number 2. Nick Lowe, which is douchebag number 3. All of these guys come from the same school of thought, and they're all holier than thou asshats that only have a career because they managed to not completely fuck up during the first 10 years of their tenure on characters that could carry anybody for at least a good number of years.
Are you saying we need to rename them from the Legion of Doofuses to the Legion of Douchebags?
I think we could do that. While they are doofuses, they're mean-spirited jackwagons too. The Legion of Douchebags is probably appropriate. They all have this insulting, condescending, I'm better than you because I'm the editor tone to their attempts at being fun-loving, humorous guys. They're jackasses. I try to be forgiving with letters pages because you're trying to have fun. You're trying to be sarcastic. Doing so in text without any other context is very hard to pull off without coming across like a douchebag.
I think people are so pissed off at this Spider-Man run at this point. that they're literally not going to take an ounce of sass off of fucking anybody from Marvel Comics associated with the book.
These guys can't read the room is the problem, because they don't think there's a room to read. They're just tucking themselves in at night thinking about the fact that the people that buy the comic book and read it aren't the customers. The stores are the customers. So I don't have to appease the people that read the comic book.
Next up, we heard from Kira. She said, ASM is not the book of the week unless you count the memes shitting on it. This run is pathetic. It's clear you fucks don't like or understand Spider-Man. Remove yourselves and let someone else who genuinely cares about Spider-Man and knows the audience to end this awful run already. And if you look at Marvel Comics this week, I agree ASM is definitely not the book of the week, certainly for Marvel or not the entire industry. I would say Ryan North's Fantastic Four, as mediocre as that has been, was far better than ASM this week. And even Marvel Zombies Dawn of Decay, a book written for 10-year-olds, outshined ASM in many, many facets. I would say this is actually one of the worst books of the week.
I get the sentiment of the Twitterer. They're already out the door. These are 2 issues or 3 issues or however many that really aren't even supposed to exist, because Zeb Wells was already done, but Joe Kelly wasn't able to beat whatever Justina Ireland wrote into a reasonable script yet. These books shouldn't exist. However, I have absolutely zero faith that it's about to get better. We know that Joe Kelly's the named writer for the first 2 issues, and then at least the next 3 after that, Justina Ireland is really the credited writer. It's about to get so much worse.
What I've heard, Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing are under serious consideration to be the new ASM writers once Joe Kelly leaves.
Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, in a healthy industry, don't even get a phone call from any of these people. Justina Ireland, nobody even contemplates her being on a book. Zeb Wells is back on the New Warriors in a healthy industry.
Jed MacKay is only doing Moon Knight. You just leave him there and hope that maybe he gets a bigger name.
Yes, exactly. Jed MacKay never gets beyond Moon Knight, because the best that they can say about Moon Knight is it's pretty good most months, at least for that first 18 issues or so. That's not something that earns you a promotion in a healthy industry. And the fact that they're even contemplating Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, the guys that have never sold anything, they have driven down sales on every single thing they've done. This is not the sign of anything improving. In fact, this is the sign of everything getting worse.
Next up, we've got Robert McQuarrie. Hey, Nick, is it really a good idea to mock your dwindling audience? What with ASM and freefall and constantly being outsold by the book you hilariously and erroneously claim the imaginary metrics don't support? I believe he's talking about Ultimate Spider-Man in that case, talking about how recently ASM has actually been outside the top 10 with the metrics that we do have, which are not perfect, but do give us an idea about how things are doing and what's popular right now. And it's clear that ASM is not very popular, especially in comparison to Ultimate Spider-Man, that is actually giving fans what they want.
They both share something in common. Peter never fucking wins any fights.
True.
In either of them. But if we're going to see a Peter that's getting his ass beat every month, I at least want him to be happily married to Mary Jane so that he can go home and she can lick his wounds or something else. Is it a good idea for him to be mocking his audience? Absolutely not. But he's going to keep doing it because he thinks that's his brand. He's the snarky editor. Bitch, you're all snarky. Like, all of you are self-entitled, self-important jackwagons. You think that that is your sense of humor. No, you're just pissing off the few people that are left. They're still reading this horse shit every month that you haven't already convinced to quit. I thought Dan Slott was going to be lowest sales. Everybody that would ever drop it would drop it during Dan Slott. Nope, Zeb Wells proved me wrong. Everybody that will ever drop it dropped it during Zeb Wells. I did. You know what? If you put Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, you might drive away some more, which might be fun. You can only do the playful jabs at your readers when the readers are mostly happy at the product and they're bitching about, like no prize level editorial mistakes. When you're actively antagonizing people that are quitting the book in droves, it's not a very smart fucking decision.
I think Nick Lowe might have convinced himself that he's the secret sauce to making Amazing Spider-Man work. Literally, it doesn't matter the creative team as long as Nick Lowe's there. But then if you actually look at history, with Spider-Man always been a popular character pretty much since day number one. And he's actually dropped it down to some historic lows at this point. And he might be the secret sauce on how to make Spider-Man shitty and not sell well.
Well, I think Nick Lowe is to Spider-Man what Jordan White was to X-Men. You can completely and totally undermine a character to the point where you've ruined a franchise. And make no mistake, Spider-Man was a franchise. I'm not even talking about all the spider people. I'm talking about the fact that Spider-Man carry 3 or 4 solo ongoing books every single month for years, for decades. The only other 2 characters that can even approach that are Batman and Superman. But looking at the success of X-Men, they managed to ruin that franchise. It's dead. You're not fixing it. The fact that there's any books from it in the top 10, it's just because the stores haven't realized how much of the audience has been driven away yet. It's
a fresh launch. Everyone's going to get extra variant covers and all that stuff.
Exactly. And the stores haven't completely abandoned it yet because they're still able to sell all these ratio variants to the few whale customers that are still X-Men completists. But sooner or later, those folks are going to leave. And once you get to issue 8 or 10 on any of those books, they will be well out of the top 10, probably out of the top 25. Spider-Man's still at what, 11 or 12, something like that. But ASM should never leave the top 10. Ever
leave the top 5.
Yeah.
Finally, we hear from One But Not Forgotten. Have you considered leaving that little bubble you live in and coming to hang out in reality for a while? If you did, you would understand why we don't want our media to be as depressing as real life. And I do want to give a salute to One But Not Forgotten for an awesome handle there. And I do think he's onto something there. I'm so tired of Peter Parker Spider-Man being the most miserable character out there.
I mean, I understand the Parker luck and having setbacks in life. It happens to everybody. But all you're doing is pushing him back and back and back. And we've been saying this for years. He has not had any success. Oh, wait, you did Superior Spider-Man. And then as soon as Peter ends up back in, his own body and everything, what does he do? He loses all of that. And then he ends up sleeping on his ex-girlfriend's couch. This has all been pathetic. I understand trying to keep Spider-Man relatable. You've gone so far past that, thinking you're making him the lovable loser when all you're doing is making him a 35-year-old fucking joke.
You are not alone. Everyone's pissed off. Nick Lowe should probably not be begging for flowers out on social media anytime soon, lauding the Amazing Spider-Man books that he's not actually producing right now because people are going to continue shitting all over him. And I do want to say thank you very much to Dok. Dok and I had about a 30-minute conversation about this. Obviously, we're going to edit it down here for the YouTubes, but if you would like the entire conversation as well as our review of the Ultimates number 5, available right now on Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description, and you get it all fully unedited and lots of fun to be had there.